Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with Charm Stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Zara stared at the single overhead light in her living room, the one Keenan had insisted on installing for a more romantic ambience. She remembered how he had teased her about her love of bright spaces, saying she should give the soft glow a chance. But now, under that same soft glow, he delivered the most unexpected news: "I just need space." Her heart pounded so fiercely that, for a moment, she couldn't process what he was saying. A million questions flooded her mind. Space from what? From their marriage? Their life together? She had always seen Keenan as the charming and confident partner who advocated closeness and teamwork. Where had this come from? Keenan stood across from her, arms folded, eyes darting around as though he wanted to be anywhere but there. He spoke in a calm, almost dispassionate tone. "Zara, you and I have been not on the same page," he said, pausing to take a deep breath. "I feel suffocated. I need some time to think, to breathe." Zara's breath caught in her throat. She managed to ask, "What do you mean by space, Keenan?" "We're husband and wife. We share everything. If something's bothering you, we can talk about it." But he was adamant. "Sometimes talking isn't enough. I'm stressed. My business is at a crossroads, and I feel like I have no mental room. I need time by myself." Zara's eyes brimmed with tears. She wanted to protest, to hug him, to find that loving reassurance that used to be so effortless. But Keenan looked at her with a pleading that suggested he needed her agreement more than anything else. Conflicted, she swallowed her hurt and answered softly, "All right, if that's what you want." A heavy silence fell between them. She stared at his face, seeking any sign that he might regret his words. Instead, he looked oddly relieved, as if she had set him free from an invisible cage. In that moment, she wondered if she had done the right thing by agreeing. But she loved him too much to cage him in. Even though part of her suspected something was off, something that didn't quite align with the Keenan she knew, she believed it was just a phase. A misguided notion that would pass. Her heart pounded as he turned away. In the corner of the living room stood the collage of pictures from their wedding day, she in a white gown trimmed with gold, and he in a stylish suit. She recalled how he had whispered in her ear that day, "I'm never letting you go." Yet here they were. And all she could do was whisper a silent prayer, hoping that the man she loved would return once his mind was clear. 2 days later, Zara packed a small suitcase, her heart heavy. She was leaving for a short self-development retreat in Ghana, a trip she had contemplated for months but never found the time to take. Initially, Keenan had encouraged her to go, saying it would help her grow as an individual. Now those words stung, given the timing of his sudden need for space. As she zipped up her suitcase, she heard him shuffling around in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, something he rarely did. Perhaps it was guilt, or maybe a last-ditch attempt to show he cared. She walked in, smelling the aroma of fried plantains and scrambled eggs. "Morning," she greeted softly, her voice shaky. He glanced over his shoulder. "Morning," he replied, then offered a small smile. "I made you breakfast. Figured it would be nice to eat before you go." Zara wanted to hold on to the moment, to remind him of their bond. They ate mostly in silence, each lost in thoughts they couldn't share. Keenan occasionally looked up, seemingly about to say something, but then changed his mind. "When does your flight leave?" he finally asked. "In about 6 hours, she said, pushing her food around her plate. Her appetite had vanished. "I'll take a cab soon." He nodded, biting his lip. Zara saw the tension in his jaw, the lines on his forehead that appeared when he was torn. Part of her wanted to stay, to demand answers. The other part whispered that perhaps time away would do them both good. She carried her suitcase to the doorway. Keenan trailed after her, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Hey," he said, catching her attention. "I know things are weird right now, but this retreat, it might be a good opportunity." Zara forced a nod. "Right," she said, looking down at the suitcase. I'll be gone for a week. Maybe we both just need some air to think. She expected a hug, or at least a gentle squeeze of her hand. Instead, he stood there stiffly, and all he managed was a quiet, safe journey. Tears threatened to spill as she walked out the door. The taxi driver greeted her with a warm smile and helped her with her suitcase. Through the rearview mirror, she caught a final glimpse of Keenan standing at the entrance, arms folded, looking like a statue carved in regret, or was it relief? She couldn't tell. The car pulled away, and Zara felt a tug in her chest. She was leaving her home in disarray, unsure if the next time she returned, things would be better, or if this was the beginning of a much larger storm. She closed her eyes and inhaled, telling herself to trust the process. He just needs space echoed in her head, as if on repeat, stirring an unease that she couldn't quite quell. Ghana's warmth enveloped Zara like a comforting shawl, providing a temporary escape from her troubles at home. The self-development retreat was held at a serene resort near the coast. Each morning, she attended workshops focused on mindfulness, personal growth, and spiritual healing. The salty air, the sound of waves crashing against rocks, and the gentle breeze of palm trees gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. Yet every evening, she felt a pang of loneliness and worry, wondering how Keenan was doing. On the third day, she mustered the courage to call him. She retreated to a quiet corner under a large palm tree, phone in hand, her heart racing. It took a few rings before he picked up, and even then, his voice was distant, as though he were distracted. "Hey," he said, no warmth in his greeting. Zara bit her lip. "Hey, Keenan. How are you?" "Fine," he replied curtly. She noticed background noise, muffled talking and what sounded like kitchen utensils clanking. Was he out with friends? Entertaining guests at home? She swallowed. "Just checking in, wanted to hear your voice." He sighed. "I'm in the middle of something right now. Is it urgent?" His tone felt like a slap. Her chest tightened, but she tried to keep her composure. "No, it's not urgent. I just missed you, that's all." An awkward silence hung between them. She heard him shuffle, perhaps moving to a quieter spot. "Sorry," he said, his voice now a bit softer. "I didn't mean to be short. I've been busy." She nodded, tears stinging her eyes, even though he couldn't see her. "Right. I understand. Well, I just wanted to let you know I'm okay here, learning a lot. The workshops are great." That's good," he said, though his words lacked conviction. "We'll talk soon, okay?" Before she could say more, he ended the call. Zara stared at her phone, disoriented by the abrupt goodbye. The breeze rustled the palm leaves overhead as she fought the tears threatening to break free. Each passing day, the weight of Keenan's distance grew heavier, and in her gut, she sensed something deeper than just stress. As she walked back to the resort's main hall, she realized she hadn't heard from her best friend, Lola, in a while either. Lola was usually the first person to check on Zara whenever she was away. But so far, not even a text. Something about the silence nagged at Zara. She told herself she was being paranoid, attributing Lola's lack of communication to busy schedules. But part of her knew better, and the unanswered questions lingered like storm clouds on the horizon. On the fourth night of the retreat, Zara couldn't sleep. She wandered the resort grounds, eventually settling on a bench beneath blooming bougainvillea vines. The air was cool, and the stars glittered like scattered diamonds overhead. A sudden impulse compelled her to call Keenan again. She glanced at the time, nearly midnight in Ghana, which meant it was still early evening back home. She dialed his number, bracing for another brief, distant conversation. To her surprise, he picked up quickly this time. She heard him say, "Hello," but it was drowned out by other voices. Zara realized he was in the middle of a phone call with someone else. The line must have accidentally connected to her. She froze, uncertain whether to speak up or hang up. Then she heard it, another voice. A woman's voice. It was faint, but audible enough to stir dread in Zara's chest. "Just be careful, Keenan," the woman whispered. "She could call any time. We don't want her suspecting anything." Zara's heart thundered. She tried to make out the words, pressing her phone tighter to her ear. There was laughter, a shared intimate laugh that made Zara's skin crawl. She heard Keenan say, "Relax, she's in Ghana for a week. We've got time." Tears welled in Zara's eyes. She bit down on her lip to stop herself from gasping. The conversation was brief. Then Keenan seemed to notice the other call. She quickly ended hers before he could realize she had overheard. Her entire body shook. She had suspected something was wrong, but hearing those words felt like a bucket of ice water poured over her. Who was the woman on the other line? Why was Keenan laughing so intimately with her? The retreat's lessons on self-love and inner peace felt distant at that moment. She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heart pounding as though it might burst. She considered calling him back to confront him, but realized she was in no emotional state to do so. Instead, she clenched her fists and fought back tears. In the silence of the Ghanaian night, Zara felt her world shifting. A fear gnawed at her. This wasn't just space he was seeking, this was a betrayal forming in the shadows. The next day, Zara skipped her morning workshop and sat alone on a wooden swing near the resort's entrance, trying to gather her thoughts. The conversation she overheard replayed in her mind like a haunting echo. She scrolled through her phone, searching for any text or missed call from Lola, but there was nothing. Normally, Lola was a whirlwind of chatter, especially when Zara traveled. She would bombard Zara with funny pictures or random stories about their neighborhood. The silence was deafening now. Zara dialed her number, heart trembling with apprehension. 1 ring, 2 rings, voicemail. She tried again, only to get the same result. She left a message, "Hey, Lola, it's me. I've been trying to reach you. I really need to talk. Call me back, please." A wave of unease settled over her. She remembered the conversation Keenan had the previous night, the woman's voice telling him they had time while Zara was away. It was impossible, she told herself. Lola was her best friend, the one person who had stood by her through heartbreaks, family drama, and everything in between. She couldn't possibly be the woman on that call. Or could she? She dismissed the thought as ridiculous. Lola had her quirks, but betrayal? That was unthinkable. The best friend who had helped choose Zara's wedding gown wouldn't do that. Zara reasoned that Lola was probably busy or dealing with some personal issue. Yet an unsettling feeling refused to leave her. Why would Lola go radio silent at a time Zara needed her most? Zara typed out a text, her fingers trembling. "Zara, Lola, I'm worried about you. Please call me as soon as you can. Is everything okay?" Before she could spiral further, a resort staff member approached, reminding her she had a guided meditation session scheduled. Zara forced a polite smile and stood, phone clutched tightly in her hand. With no reply from Lola, and Keenan's behavior growing more suspicious, Zara felt caught in a swirl of anxiety. She tried to center herself, remembering the retreat's teachings about calmness, but her gut told her that calm was the last thing she would find back home. The following morning, Zara made a decision. She would go home early. Whatever was happening with Keenan, she had to face it head-on. She couldn't hide behind the distraction of guided meditations and yoga sessions any longer. She needed clarity, or closure. She booked an earlier flight that cut her retreat short by 3 days. Her heart pounded at the mere thought of seeing Keenan again and confronting her worst fears. As she threw her belongings haphazardly into her suitcase, her mind reeled with possibilities. Would Keenan be angry that she returned unannounced? Or would he be relieved? Would he finally tell her the truth about what was going on? On the way to the airport, she gazed out the car window, watching the Ghanaian landscapes zip past. Bustling streets, vibrant markets, and people full of life. She felt guilty for leaving the retreat abruptly, but the urgency in her gut had grown insurmountable. During the flight, her stomach felt like it was in knots. She fiddled with her seatbelt, tapped her foot, and tried to distract herself by flipping through the in-flight magazine. Nothing worked. Her mind kept drifting back to Keenan's whispered conversation and the unknown woman. The plane landed in her home city late at night. By the time she disembarked and collected her luggage, exhaustion settled over her like a heavy fog. But she didn't want to wait until morning to go home. She needed to see for herself what awaited her. The entire drive from the airport, She stared out the taxi window at the familiar roads, feeling like a stranger in her own life. She rehearsed different versions of confrontation in her head. Keenan, who was that on the phone? Or, Keenan, let's talk this out. But none felt quite right. Fear coiled around her thoughts, reminding her that once she opened this door, there would be no going back. Finally, the taxi pulled up to her house. She noticed immediately that the street was unusually busy. Cars lined up, music emanating from somewhere near her home. Her heart hammered as she paid the driver. She stepped out, gripping the handle of her suitcase, confusion racing through her mind. Balloons and banners? She could see them from a distance, even in the dim evening light. The flicker of suspicion grew stronger. Something unexpected was going on, and she wasn't ready for it. Zara dragged her suitcase along the sidewalk leading to her front door. The headlights of parked cars illuminated flashes of colored balloons attached to the fence. She noticed pink and white banners fluttering in the slight breeze. The murmuring of voices and occasional bursts of laughter drifted across the lawn, as though there was a celebration inside. Her heart pounded. This couldn't be real. She lived in this neighborhood. She knew her neighbors. Why was there a party in her home? As she reached the driveway, she paused to read the banner draped above her door. The words were partially obscured by balloons, but she could see "Miracle Baby" in large letters. Her stomach lurched. A baby shower? She willed her hands to stop trembling long enough to unlock her front door. She could hear music thumping inside now. With a surge of courage, she pushed the door open, and what met her eyes was surreal. Her living room was filled with guests, decorations, and baby-themed streamers. A large table in the corner was laden with neatly wrapped gifts. The smell of fried puff-puff and jollof rice mingled in the air. An older woman she recognized from the neighborhood turned to face her and nearly dropped the paper plate she was holding. A hush spread like wildfire as guests slowly realized who had just walked in. All eyes landed on Zara, disheveled from travel and wide-eyed with confusion. She tried to make sense of the scene. A baby shower in her house, and she hadn't been informed or invited. She spotted some of Keenan's relatives in the crowd, along with a few neighbors, all wearing forced smiles or awkwardly looking away. A weight pressed on Zara's chest. She wanted to scream or demand an explanation. Instead, she stood frozen in the entrance, her mind reeling with shock and an unnamed dread. The earlier suspicions she had, Keenan's strange behavior, Lola's silence, the overheard phone call, suddenly formed a chilling possibility. Nobody had warned her. Nobody had hinted that she would come home to her house transformed into a festive venue for an event she knew nothing about. She started to walk deeper into the room, weaving through the startled guests. Murmurs arose, and she overheard snatches of conversation. "Oh my goodness, she came back early. Does she know? Who told her to come now?" Zara's eyes scanned the decorations. Pastel balloons, cut-out letters spelling "It's a baby," a giant diaper-shaped poster board with signatures on it. Her throat felt tight. She didn't want to imagine who the baby shower was for, but a part of her already knew, thanks to that creeping sense of betrayal. She took a moment to steady her voice before managing a polite question to a woman she recognized from her church. "Excuse me," she said, forcing calm. "What's going on here?" The woman's eyes flickered with discomfort. "It's, a baby shower." "For whom?" The woman gulped, stammering. For Lola." Zara felt the blood drain from her face. She clenched her jaw to keep from collapsing. Her best friend, who had gone silent for weeks, was pregnant, and the shower was being held here. Without Zara's knowledge or blessing. Just then, a figure emerged from the kitchen area. Auntie Kemi, Lola's aunt and the notorious neighborhood gossip, spotted Zara. Her eyes bulged with alarm, but she plastered on a quick, nervous smile. "Zara, dear. You're back. We didn't realize. Well, you were out of town. And it's Lola's baby shower, so we thought, you know." Her voice trailed off as she realized she was digging herself into a deeper hole. Zara felt a wave of nausea. This was more than just a miscommunication. Something was deeply, painfully wrong. Where was Lola? More importantly, where was Keenan? She needed answers, and she needed them now. Overwhelmed by the swirling questions, Zara pressed her hand against her forehead. People parted as she moved through the crowd, heading toward the one place she instinctively felt she might find the truth: the kitchen, where laughter and conversation had been coming for minutes ago. In the kitchen, trays of small chops and drinks were laid out. Zara saw half-eaten plates of food on the counter, lipstick-stained cups, and used napkins scattered around. But no Lola in sight. She was about to turn around when a soft giggle made her pause. She followed the sound into the adjoining dining area. There, like a vision from her worst nightmare, stood Lola, belly visibly rounded, about 6 months pregnant, wearing a flowy peach-colored maternity dress. Her eyes locked with Zara's, and in that split second, Lola's face went from carefree happiness to utter panic. "Zara," Lola whispered, one hand protectively cradling her stomach. All the color drained from her face, and she seemed frozen in place. Zara took in the scene, the woman she trusted most in the world, pregnant in her house, celebrating with her friends and neighbors, all without her knowledge. The room seemed to tilt. Anger, betrayal, and confusion warred within Zara's chest. She took a step forward. "You're pregnant?" she asked, her voice trembling with shock. "Why didn't you tell me? And why here? Why in my home?" Lola's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked away, tears threatening to spill. It was then that Zara noticed a stuffed teddy bear sitting on the dining table, a card attached that read, "A gift for our precious one." She turned back to Lola. "Is it Keenan?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She hated that she even had to ask, but the evidence was too strong to ignore. Before Lola could respond, a flurry of movement at the doorway caused both women to turn. Keenan appeared, his eyes wide with alarm. He scanned from Zara to Lola, then back to Zara. "Zara, you're home," he stammered, his voice thick with guilt. Zara took another step back, nearly tripping over a chair. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear anything else. She looked from Keenan to Lola, seeing their faces etched with fear. The realization that her husband and her best friend might share a child crushed her. She felt her world disintegrating under the weight of the betrayal. Keenan stepped forward, trying to speak, but Zara raised a trembling hand to stop him. At that very moment, Lola, overwhelmed by tension, let out a soft cry, and Keenan instinctively placed his hand on her belly to steady her, a gesture of familiarity and protection that cut Zara to the core. The sight of his hand resting gently on Lola's pregnant stomach was like a dagger twisting in Zara's heart. It confirmed what she feared: the baby was Keenan's. No words were needed to convey the intimacy of that touch. The silent exchange between the two was unmistakable. Zara felt her knees weaken. The air seemed to thin around her, making it hard to breathe. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound emerged. Instead, she clutched the back of a chair for support, struggling to keep herself from collapsing. Lola withdrew slightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Keenan looked from Lola to Zara, his face etched with a mixture of guilt and panic. "Zara," he began, voice trembling, "let me explain." "Explain what?" she managed to choke out. "That you're standing there with your hand on my best friend's belly in my house, celebrating a child I knew nothing about? Or that you told me you needed space, and this is what you did with it?" Her voice cracked, and tears threatened to blur her vision. A million emotions coursed through her: betrayal, disgust, heartbreak, confusion. She wanted to fling accusations at them, to scream for answers. Lola wiped her eyes. "Zara, I'm so sorry," she whispered. But the apology felt like salt in the wound. Any attempt to comfort or explain at this point felt grotesque. Keenan opened his mouth again, but Zara held up a trembling hand. "Don't," she said, her voice cold despite her tears. She stared at the two people she had once trusted more than anyone in the world. The irony of it all, the baby shower that everyone but her seemed to know about, made her stomach churn. Over the faint sound of music and chatter from the living room, Zara heard her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She forced herself to straighten her spine, refusing to crumble in front of them. She needed to get out of this nightmarish scene, away from the suffocating reality of their betrayal. In that burning moment, the closeness between Keenan and Lola, revealed by such a simple gesture, shattered every illusion Zara once clung to. and she realized there might be no fixing this. Zara stormed back into the living room, where the hush had only partially lifted. People were still milling about, uncertain how to react to her sudden appearance. Some pretended to chat among themselves, while others blatantly stared at her, curiosity mingling with pity in their eyes. Time felt warped. Every movement seemed slow, every sound muffled. She spotted Mama Binta, Keenan's mother, standing in a corner, holding a glass of juice. Their eyes locked, and Zara saw something unsettling there. Not shock, not remorse, but a strange resignation. Guests began to notice Keenan and Lola emerging behind Zara. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Zara felt like her heart was about to explode. It was too much. Too many eyes, too much pity, too many whispers. A few of Lola's relatives hovered near the couch, their faces marked with guilt or defiance. Zara could sense Auntie Kemi among them, that familiar expression of smug curiosity playing on her lips. She glanced around, searching for her father, Mr. Ade, or any other familiar face from her side of the family. She saw no one. The lonely realization stabbed at her. She was entirely on her own in this house of betrayal. Keenan tried to place a hand on her shoulder, but she jerked away. She thought of the moment when he used to tell her she was the only woman for him, how he had guided her through tough times, always promising that they were a team. Now, surrounded by baby shower gifts and onlookers, that promise rang hollow. The silence stretched, an oppressive blanket of tension. Nobody knew what to say. Then, like a distant echo, she heard someone whisper, "That's her, poor thing." Poor thing. Zara felt the weight of those words. She was done being pitied. She inhaled deeply, mustering every ounce of strength to stand tall. In her mind, she replayed the countless times she had supported Lola, the unwavering loyalty she had shown her, and the unconditional love she had given Keenan. Now, all of it lay in ruins. At that moment, the world stopped for Zara. Her marriage, her friendships, her sense of self. Everything she had built her life upon had shattered. She looked around the room one last time, tears slipping down her cheeks despite her efforts to keep them in, and decided she would not crumble in front of these people. She would walk out with whatever dignity she had left. A wave of cold fury washed over Zara, momentarily eclipsing her heartbreak. She locked eyes with Keenan, ignoring the inquisitive stares of the guests. "You said you needed space," she hissed, her voice trembling with both anger and betrayal. "Space for this." Keenan looked pained, but his hands twitched as though he wanted to grab her arm. "Zara, please, let's talk somewhere private." But Zara was beyond caring about privacy. Her voice rose, resonating with every ounce of hurt she felt. "Space. That's what you told me, while you were here planning a child with my best friend." She gestured toward Lola, who stood in the background, tears staining her cheeks, her hands protectively covering her stomach. A ripple of gasps spread through the crowd. Some guests lowered their gazes, while others watched the drama unfold with morbid fascination. Zara couldn't believe these were the same neighbors and friends who had once celebrated her and Keenan's union. Keenan tried to steady his voice. It wasn't planned like this," he stammered. "Things just happened. We got close and—" "Stop," Zara snapped, feeling a surge of indignation. "Things don't just happen. Cheating isn't an accident. It's a choice." She felt tears of rage burn her eyes, but she refused to wipe them away. "I gave you space because I believed in our marriage. And this is what you did with it." Her words sliced through the hush of the room. Keenan looked as though he wanted the floor to swallow him, and a few onlookers discreetly made their way toward the door, unable to bear witness to the confrontation any longer. Meanwhile, some stood, riveted by the unfolding drama. Zara's shoulders shook with the weight of everything she had just discovered. She turned to Lola, her voice wavering. "Why?" she asked, her eyes searching her friend's face. "Of all people, why you?" Lola pressed her lips together. Her tears were silent, but her eyes spoke volumes of regret, confusion, and shame. Yet no answer she could give would erase the betrayal. Zara realized she was never going to get a satisfying explanation. The damage was already done. A heavy silence followed. In that moment, Zara felt the gravity of her shattered dreams pressing down on her. She had so many questions. Why it happened, when it started, how they could have betrayed her so intimately, but none of those answers would bring relief now. She was face to face with the cruel reality. The man she loved and the friend she trusted had betrayed her trust in the worst possible way. Keenan stumbled over his words, trying to offer some semblance of justification. "Zara, I never meant to hurt you. She cut him off, voice choked with incredulity. "Never meant to hurt me? You impregnated my best friend. That's not a trivial mistake. This is the ultimate betrayal." Lola approached cautiously, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Zara," she managed, voice trembling, "it just happened. I was going through a tough time. Keenan was there for me. We didn't plan on this baby, but," she broke off, tears overflowing. "We didn't mean to hurt you, really." Zara's eyes flashed. "Don't you dare reduce my pain to an accidental slip," she spat. "This was months of deceit. You had every opportunity to stop." She inhaled sharply, struggling to maintain her composure. "And the worst part is, you both had the audacity to throw a baby shower in my own home. Did you think I would never come back? That I'd just vanish so you could play house?" Lola's lip quivered. "I'm sorry, Zara. If I could turn back time." "But you can't," Zara snapped. She felt a wave of fury that mingled with heartbreak in her veins. "And don't insult me with a mock apology after everything you've done." The murmur of onlookers grew louder. Some shook their heads in disapproval of Lola and Keenan's actions, while others seemed conflicted, uncertain of how to react. Zara noticed Mama Binta lurking in the background, her expression stone-like. The older woman's silence was deafening, and something about her demeanor sent a chill through Zara. Keenan inhaled, a shaky breath escaping his lips. "We'll figure this out." "No," Zara interjected, her voice resolute. "You will figure this out. I want no part of it." Her gaze traveled slowly between the two of them. "Whatever life you want to build, whatever future you think you have, count me out." She felt the finality of her words resonate in her chest. She was done listening to weak justifications and flimsy excuses. No explanation could undo the damage or heal her shattered heart. Zara's mind raced with the realization that, at some point, she'd have to gather her belongings, sort out finances, and face a future where she might no longer be Keenan's wife or Lola's friend. But that was a problem for another day. Tonight, she simply needed to breathe and remember who she was, beyond the pain. As Zara retreated from the confrontation, she heard a voice call her name. She turned to see Mama Binta stepping forward, chin lifted with a matriarchal pride that had once comforted Zara. Now it felt menacing. "Zara," Mama Binta said, "this matter is between you, Keenan, and Lola. But you must understand, my son needs to have a child. Lola is giving him what you could not." Zara froze, raw pain flashing across her features. She knew Mama Binta had never fully warmed to her. The older woman had always been cordial enough, but Zara sensed that Keenan's mother harbored a desire for a more traditional daughter-in-law, someone who would prioritize motherhood over career. But to say it like this, in front of everyone, was a slap in the face. "Excuse me," Zara replied, voice tight. Mama Binta raised an eyebrow. "You heard me. You've been married for how many years now? And still no child. Keenan is not getting any younger. He deserves a family." Hot tears pricked Zara's eyes. Memories of her miscarriage 2 years ago surged forward, the painful hospital nights and Keenan's initial disappointment. She swallowed back her sorrow, refusing to let Mama Binta see her cry. "You act like it's my fault I haven't had a baby," she said, her voice trembling. "Things happen. And how dare you condone an affair under the pretext of wanting a grandchild?" Mama Binta's eyes hardened. "You should leave if you cannot understand," she said, her tone cold. "Keenan is my son. I support his happiness." Zara almost laughed bitterly at that statement. She glanced around, seeing some guests shifting uncomfortably, aware they were witnessing a private family drama. Mama Binta's unwavering loyalty to Keenan at the expense of Zara's dignity cut like a knife. "Your son's happiness?" Zara whispered. What about my happiness? What about loyalty and honesty? Do you think any of this is right? Mama Binta said nothing, merely pursed her lips as though Zara was asking foolish questions. That act of silent disapproval infuriated Zara, making her realize that she was in an environment where her pain was not just dismissed but justified by those who felt Kenan had a right to do whatever he wanted to fulfill a supposed destiny of fatherhood. Zara locked eyes with the older woman for a tense moment. Then, with a sharp turn, she left the room. The oppression of her betrayal, Mama Binta's judgment, and the humiliating scene in her own home were too much to bear. She needed fresh air. She needed to breathe. Zara rushed outside, gulping in the night air as if she had been drowning. The sound of laughter and conversation from the party still floated through the open windows, a cruel reminder that people were actively celebrating a betrayal that had upended her life. She moved toward the far end of the yard, tears rolling down her cheeks. In the shadows near the fence, she spotted a figure she recognized instantly. Her father, Mr. Ade. Her steps faltered. She hadn't seen him inside, and the sight of him standing there, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the ground, filled her with fresh turmoil. "Daddy!" she called softly, her voice cracking. "What are you doing here?" Mr. Ade looked up, a mixture of shame and sadness in his eyes. He was an emotionally distant man, not one to offer warm embraces or soothing words. But he had always been her father, the man whose approval she'd sought her entire life. He began, his voice gruff. "I came because Kenan's mother asked me to. I knew about Lola being pregnant." Zara felt her knees weaken. The betrayal grew heavier. Her own father had known. She stared at him in disbelief, tears welling anew. "You knew," she whispered. "And you said nothing to me?" His face twitched in remorse. "Zara, listen, I thought it was something you would find out in time. I didn't want to meddle." "Meddle?" she repeated, voice rising. "I'm your daughter. You stood by and let them plan this baby shower in my house without telling me." Mr. Ade dropped his gaze. "Things are complicated," he muttered. "They said they didn't want to hurt you, that they'd find the right moment to tell you." Zara felt a bitter laugh bubbling up. "Clearly, they waited for the right moment," she said, gesturing back to the house. "So you knew about Kenan's affair with Lola, and you just went along with it?" Her eyes burned with tears and anger. "How could you do that to me?" Mr. Ade ran a hand over his bald head, sighing heavily. "I'm sorry, Zara. I didn't handle this the right way." She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling more alone than ever. Everyone she had trusted, her husband, her best friend, her mother-in-law, and now her own father, had failed her in some way. It was too much to process. She wanted to scream at him, but all she could manage was a choked sob. "I needed your protection," she whispered. "Or at least your honesty." He tried to place a hand on her shoulder, but she pulled away. The sight of her father's regret only magnified her sense of betrayal. She was tired of well-meaning explanations. Tired of everyone acting like a secret this monumental could be hidden for her own good. Without another word, Zara turned and walked back toward the house. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to extract herself from this pit of deception that everyone around her seemed content to dwell in. Trembling, Zara re-entered her once cozy living room, which now felt alien and violated. She found a quiet corner away from prying eyes and slid down against the wall, her head in her hands. Images and memories flooded her mind in rapid succession. She remembered 2 years earlier when she stood in a hospital corridor, clutching onto Kenan's arm for support. Her body had just miscarried their first child. The devastation of that loss had been profound. Her maternal dreams, her hopes for a family, all snatched away in a swirl of hospital gowns and sterile lights. Kenan had been there physically, but emotionally distant, complaining about finances and how a child might have been bad timing. She recalled how numb she felt as a nurse gently patted her shoulder, offering condolences. In the days and weeks that followed, Zara struggled to process her grief. She had carried guilt, wondering if it was something she did or didn't do that caused the miscarriage. Kenan, lost in his own world, had offered little emotional support. He returned to work almost immediately and spent more and more time away. When Zara had tried to talk about her pain, he dismissed her tears, telling her to be strong. A wave of anger jolted her back to the present. He doesn't deserve me, she thought bitterly. This was a man who hadn't grieved with her, who hadn't consoled her, yet he had found the time to forge an intimate relationship with her best friend, resulting in the pregnancy he now publicly celebrated. Tears streamed down her face, fueled by sorrow and a sense of profound injustice. She remembered Lola too, how her best friend had sat by her bedside, brought her soup, promised that she and Keenan would get through this. All lies. The memory of Lola's comforting hand on hers now felt like the cruelest betrayal. Her vision blurred as she wiped at her tears. She wondered, could she have known? Were there signs all along that she was just too blind or trusting to see? Perhaps Keenan's repeated late nights, Lola's evasive answers when Zara asked what she was up to. The months of subtle distance that had grown between them. The flashbacks and revelations came in waves, battering her already fractured heart. She closed her eyes and inhaled, trying to center herself. As painful as the memories were, they also reignited a spark of survival within her. She had endured the miscarriage. She could endure this, too. Or at least, she hoped she could. Summoning her courage, Zara rose from her hiding place in the corner. The room remained tense, the crowd of guests unsure how to continue with the party, or if it was appropriate to leave. The humiliating spectacle had left everyone on edge. Keenan approached cautiously, as though she were a wounded animal that might bite. "Zara," he pleaded, voice low. "Let's talk. Just you and me." She squared her shoulders, refusing to look at him directly. "There's nothing left to say," she replied, her tone hollow. "I'm leaving." "Leaving? Where will you go?" Keenan asked, panic creeping into his eyes. "Anywhere but here," Zara hissed. She glanced around the living room, her gaze flicking over the baby shower decorations, the pitying stares of onlookers, the half-eaten cupcakes on a table. It felt unreal. "This is no longer my home." Keenan blanched, seemingly realizing that this was real. She was truly walking out. Lola, who stood nearby, let out a soft sob. Zara ignored her, stepping over gift bags and party favors as she made her way to the front door. Auntie Kemi, Lola's aunt, tried to intervene. "Zara, wait, please. Don't act rashly. We can handle this privately." Zara shot her a glare that shut her up instantly. Privately? The betrayal had been plastered for the whole neighborhood to witness. She stepped outside, letting the cool night air wash over her flushed face. A wave of relief accompanied the fresh breeze. She caught sight of a few neighbors gawking from their porches, no doubt having heard the commotion. But she didn't care. She headed straight for the sidewalk, phone in hand, ready to call a taxi. Behind her, she heard Keenan's voice echo through the night, calling her name. She didn't turn around. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Perhaps, in a different scenario, she would have stayed to talk, to find closure. But the shamelessness of a baby shower in her own house, with her best friend at the center, had extinguished any desire for calm discussion. As she reached the end of the block, a taxi pulled up, the driver rolling down his window with a questioning look. Zara climbed in, ignoring the tears streaming down her cheeks. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror but said nothing. She was grateful for the silence. When the car pulled away, she cast one last fleeting glance at the house. A swirl of emotions churned in her: anger, sorrow, betrayal, even a hint of relief. She didn't know what the future held, but for now, she walked out with her head held high, refusing to be broken in front of her betrayers. Within a day, Zara found a modest one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't luxurious, but it was a roof over her head that offered the privacy she so desperately needed. She paid the deposit using her personal savings, money she had put aside for a future she thought would involve Keenan. The apartment was sparsely furnished when she moved in. A simple couch, a small dining table, and a bed. She set up her laptop in a corner of the living room, determined to keep busy. Her professional background was in marketing and branding, and she had occasionally fantasized about launching her own lifestyle and wellness platform. It was a dream she once thought she'd undertake with Keenan's support. Now, she decided to do it alone. Each day, Zara awoke early. She forced herself to do a short meditation, a routine she had picked up during her brief time at the retreat in Ghana. Then she would dive into brainstorming brand concepts, drafting social media strategies, and envisioning a community of women who supported each other through life's challenges. She named her budding company Zara Life, a nod to her determination to reclaim her own life and identity. She planned to offer virtual workshops, motivational content, and wellness products. She even mapped out a line of herbal teas and self-care journals, focusing on holistic healing for women facing emotional trauma. In the quiet evenings, she dealt with her heartbreak in smaller, more private moments. Sometimes she sobbed into her pillow, the reality of Keenan and Lola's betrayal hitting her like a tidal wave. Other times she felt a cold, steely resolve, reminding herself that she refused to be defined by their wrongdoing. Weeks passed, and slowly, Zara reconnected with herself. She listened to Afrobeat music while she worked, took walks around her new neighborhood, and learned to cook new recipes that soothed her soul. She also built a small but dedicated following on social media, sharing uplifting quotes and snippets of her journey, always anonymously, never divulging the full betrayal. Yet, her posts carried a raw honesty that resonated with many. Despite the pain, she felt a flicker of hope. For the first time in a while, she was living life on her own terms, unburdened by Keenan's demands or Lola's meddling. And in those moments of clarity, she saw the faint beginnings of a new chapter, one where she would no longer be a victim, but a survivor standing on her own 2 feet. One fateful afternoon, Zara decided to record a candid video to post on her personal page, a page that had, until now, been quite private. She didn't mention names or specific details, but she spoke about healing from betrayal, the need for self-worth, and the journey to rebuild after a shattering heartbreak. With trembling fingers, she clicked upload. She didn't expect much. Maybe a handful of supportive comments from acquaintances. But the very next morning, she awoke to a flurry of notifications. Her video had been shared by someone with a large following, then reshared again and again, quickly racking up thousands of views. The messages poured in, women, and even some men, from different walks of life, resonating with her words, praising her courage, and asking how they could start their own healing journeys. Hashtags referencing empowerment and emotional resilience accompanied her post. Overnight, Zara found herself at the center of a viral phenomenon. She stared at the numbers in disbelief. Her quiet corner of the internet had exploded into a bustling community. Rather than feeling intimidated, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She responded to comments, offering words of encouragement and linking to more resources on healing and self-care. Word spread about her budding brand, Zara Life. Invitations for guest interviews on small podcasts trickled in. People requested her to speak at women's support groups. She had unknowingly tapped into a well of shared pain, infidelity, heartbreak, and self-discovery, and offered a voice of empathy. In the midst of this viral success, Zara realized something else. She was no longer suffering in isolation. Her story had transcended her personal circumstances, becoming a beacon of hope for others. She saw the seed of a supportive community forming, each person uplifting the other. While the pain of betrayal still lingered, each day of positive messages reminded her that she wasn't alone. She had found a tribe of survivors who recognized her strength and cheered her on. And in cheering her on, they helped her heal, one encouraging comment at a time. With her story going viral, offers and collaborations started flooding in. A popular lifestyle website reached out, requesting Zara write a weekly column on emotional resilience. Then came a small publishing house, interested in compiling her social media posts into a short ebook. It was all happening so fast, but Zara felt energized, as though she had finally found the path she was meant to tread. She poured her soul into Zara Life. She refined her brand strategy, created a professional website, and curated online events focused on holistic healing, like virtual yoga classes, mindfulness sessions, and group therapy discussions. She hired a small team of freelancers, a graphic designer, a video editor, and a customer service rep to handle the flood of emails. The momentum built upon itself. Soon, Zara Life had thousands of followers, then tens of thousands. The brand slogan, "Bloom after the storm," took off as a rallying cry for those who had experienced adversity. Zara's earlier heartbreak became the foundation of her empire, a living testament to the idea that broken pieces could be rearranged into a masterpiece. Media outlets began dubbing her a rising influencer in wellness and female empowerment. Her pictures graced online articles, and her quotes became viral memes. Interviewers were impressed by her authenticity. She didn't pretend to be perfect or fully healed. She admitted her struggles with nightmares, anxiety, and tears. But she also showcased the power of forging ahead, scars and all. Financial stability soon followed. Sponsorship deals, affiliate partnerships, and product sales from her herbal teas and journals helped her move out of the small apartment into a more spacious loft that doubled as her office and recording studio. Every morning, she sipped her tea, gazing at the city skyline, amazed at how drastically her life had changed in just a few months. Still, she never forgot the cost of her success: a shattered marriage, a broken friendship, a deeply wounded heart. On the nights when she felt pangs of sadness, she reminded herself that she was using her pain to create something meaningful. And if there was any solace in betrayal, it was that it had pushed her to grow beyond her old limits, to discover a depth of strength she never knew she possessed. While Zara's star was on the rise, Keenan and Lola's relationship was hitting turbulent waters. Whispers reached Zara through mutual acquaintances. Keenan's business was struggling, and Lola found herself overwhelmed by the realities of pregnancy and public scrutiny. People in the neighborhood whispered behind their backs, judging them for the blatant affair that had hurt Zara so publicly. The baby shower fiasco had also gone viral in its own way. Leaked photos and videos circulated on social media, painting Keenan as the unfaithful husband who threw a lavish party for his mistress in his wife's home. The condemnation was swift and fierce. His business partnerships wavered, with some clients quietly pulling out. Investors lost confidence, questioning his judgment and ethics. Inside that troubled home, Lola battled her own guilt. She had expected a fairy tale romance once Keenan acknowledged the pregnancy, but reality turned out to be less than rosy. Keenan was moody, consumed by his failing business. Arguments flared over finances and the stress of negative public perception. Their nights often ended in tense silence, punctuated by tears and hushed phone calls. Mama Binta, who once championed Lola as the better wife, found herself avoiding neighbors who threw accusatory looks. She scolded Lola for not being more docile, for complaining about her predicament instead of counting her blessings at having Keenan's child. But Lola's conscience weighed heavily on her. She was carrying a child in a home fraught with shame and turmoil. She missed her old friendship with Zara. Despite the betrayal, she had truly loved Zara as a friend once. Now, she was isolated, with only Mama Binta's lukewarm support and Keenan's crumbling finances. All the while, rumors spread. Some claimed Lola and Keenan fought violently. Others said Lola considered moving back with Auntie Kemi. Whatever the truth, the cracks in their new relationship were widening. The child's imminent arrival added pressure rather than relief, each day dragging them deeper into a reality they hadn't fully anticipated. At the local market, Mama Binta walked briskly through the aisles, her head lowered to avoid eye contact. She could almost feel the stares of the other women who whispered among themselves. In better days, she had worn her status as a proud mother to Keenan, the successful businessman. She had boasted about the potential daughter-in-law he deserved. But now, the dream she constructed had turned sour. Rumors about the scandal with Zara and Lola swirled, growing more salacious with every retelling. Some claimed that Mama Binta had orchestrated the entire affair, pushing Lola into Keenan's arms to secure a grandchild. Others said she had always despised Zara and was relieved to see her gone. None of it painted Mama Binta in a good light. Her shame deepened each time she overheard laughter or mocking phrases like "miracle baby," tossed about sarcastically. Shopkeepers who once greeted her warmly now offered curt nods or avoided her altogether. Even the local prayer group that Mama Binta attended had become awkward. Women who once praised her for raising such a respectable son now treated her like a cautionary tale. Worst of all, Keenan's own frustrations spilled over into their relationship. He blamed her for encouraging him to pursue fatherhood with Lola. He pointed out how the negative publicity was affecting his already strained business. And while Mama Binta still believed she had acted in her son's best interest, she began to question whether her unwavering loyalty had come at too great a cost. Night after night, she would sit in her living room, blinds drawn, trying to tune out the arguments between Keenan and Lola in the next room. She thought about Zara and felt a pang of something that approached regret. Perhaps if she had shown more compassion, if she had offered Zara a real chance, they wouldn't all be in this mess. But regret was a private emotion she dared not speak aloud, least of all to her son. She chose instead to bury it, maintaining a facade of resolve. Yet, with each passing day, her shame grew, casting a shadow that seemed impossible to outrun. One afternoon, as Zara was wrapping up a live Q&A session for her Zara Life community, her phone buzzed incessantly. She ended the live stream and checked the notifications. Several missed calls from Keenan. Her heart pounded, memories of betrayal bubbling up. She had not spoken to him since that night she walked out. Curiosity and residual anger collided in her mind. After a moment of indecision, she decided to pick up on his next call. His voice sounded strained. "Zara, hi." She took a breath. "What do you want, Keenan?" He hesitated, the silence thick. "I need to see you. Can we talk? Please." "About what?" she asked, keeping her tone firm. She reminded herself of how far she'd come. She wasn't the same woman who would crumble at his words. "My business is... it's not good. Investors are pulling out. People are gossiping. I need your advice," he admitted, voice wavering with desperation. Zara almost laughed in disbelief. After everything, he had the gall to come to her for business advice? "Keenan," she said, voice dripping with irony, "I run a wellness brand, not a rehab center for cheating husbands." She could practically hear him flinch on the other end. "I know," he said quietly. "But you're good at what you do. Branding, marketing, crisis management. And look, I messed up. I know that. But please, Zara, I need your help to fix things." She closed her eyes, recalling the nights she cried herself to sleep while he entertained another woman under their marital roof. The tension weighed heavily on her chest, but she refused to let him manipulate her. "Keenan, I owe you nothing," she said, her voice deadly calm. "Your crisis is of your own making. Find someone else to bail you out." There was a pause, broken by a sigh. "Zara, I'm not just calling about business," he finally confessed. "I miss you. My life is a mess without you. I'm sorry." Tears threatened to prick her eyes, but she steeled herself. "You're sorry because you got caught and because you're suffering the consequences," she whispered. "Not because you truly regret what you did." He tried to protest, but she ended the call. Her hands shook as she placed the phone on her desk. She wanted to scream, to fling something across the room, but instead, she took a shaky breath and reminded herself, she was no longer the woman who needed his validation. If he had come for a second chance, he was far too late. A few months later, Zara stood backstage at a prestigious women's empowerment conference, smoothing the folds of her elegant maxi dress. Her brand, Zara Life, had grown exponentially, and she was now a sought-after speaker on resilience and entrepreneurship. The theme of the event was Women Rising from the Ashes, and Zara felt it couldn't be more fitting. When the MC announced her name, thunderous applause shook the auditorium. She stepped onto the stage, heart racing. Rows upon rows of expectant faces looked up at her. The bright lights shone on her, but instead of fear, she felt a rush of gratitude. This was her moment, her chance to share how tragedy could seed triumph. She started her speech by recounting her lowest points: heartbreak, betrayal, and the sense of total loss. She spoke about how she used mindfulness, introspection, and sheer determination to build Zara Life from the ground up. She didn't name Keenan or Lola, but the pain in her voice hinted at the rawness of her experiences. The audience hung on every word. Meanwhile, in a small, dimly lit living room miles away, Keenan watched the event's live stream on his phone. Lola had just given birth to a baby boy, and the house was cluttered with baby supplies. The tension between them was palpable as he hovered over the phone screen, eyes glued to Zara's image. He saw the standing ovation she received when she finished her speech, the adoration on the faces of women who now admired and respected her. He felt a pang in his chest, regret, envy, loss. She looked radiant, more alive than he had ever seen her. And she was surrounded by support, something he couldn't claim anymore. As Zara exited the stage to a roar of applause, Keenan sank back into the couch, tears stinging his eyes. He realized just how far she had moved on, leaving him behind in the wreckage of his own making. In the conference hall, Zara thanked a few attendees who approached her for selfies and autographs. She saw the hope in their eyes, recognized the spark of inspiration she was passing on. It felt surreal, knowing how that hope had once almost died within her. For the first time in a long while, she felt genuinely at peace, proud of the woman she had become, and more certain than ever that she would never go back to the life she had left behind. The day arrived when Zara decided to return, one last time, to the house she had shared with Keenan. But this visit wasn't for reconciliation or confrontation, it was for closure. She wanted to reclaim a forgotten photo album that held memories of her childhood, her mother, and earlier family trips. She had left it behind in the chaos of her departure, and now she felt it was time to retrieve it and fully move on. She chose a quiet Sunday afternoon, confident that Keenan would likely be away. The house looked the same from the outside, though it felt strangely smaller and less welcoming. She let herself in with the spare key she still had, stepping into the living room that once held so many memories. The baby shower decorations were long gone. The house felt cold, empty, the furniture arranged differently. She noticed small signs of a new baby in the corner, a folded stroller, a box of diapers. A wave of conflicting emotions hit her, but she reminded herself to stay focused. She headed to the bedroom where she and Keenan had shared countless intimate moments, too many to count. She felt a twinge of sadness at seeing the bed where they once cuddled, whispered dreams for the future. On a bookshelf in the corner, she found the photo album. Before she could leave, a soft noise made her spin around. In the doorway stood Keenan, looking tired and aged beyond his years. He must have heard her come in. They locked eyes, and for a moment, neither spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. "You came back," he said, hope flickering in his tired voice. Zara clutched the album to her chest, steeling herself. "Just for this," she replied calmly, lifting the album slightly. He nodded, swallowing hard. How are you?" he asked, voice quivering. She inhaled, remembering the heartbreak, the shame, the countless nights of tears, but also recalling the unstoppable force she had become. "I'm good," she said simply. Keenan's eyes moistened. He wanted to say more, to apologize again or perhaps beg her to reconsider. But something in her composure told him it was pointless. She took a step toward the door, then paused. "Goodbye, Keenan," she said softly. There was no hatred in her voice, just finality. She had done her grieving and found her path. She owed him nothing more. Without waiting for a response, she walked past him, out of the bedroom, through the living room, and out the front door. She felt the sun's warmth on her skin and lifted her face to the sky, clutching the photo album as if it were a trophy of survival. In that moment, Zara felt lighter than she had in years. The echoes of betrayal no longer weighed her down. She had built something beautiful out of the ashes of her past, and she was free. With each step away from that house, she walked further into a future that was entirely her own, forever free, forever strong, and forever done with the shadows of betrayal. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.